Get some analysis now from Omar Baddar. He's the member of the National Policy Council of the Arab American Institute, and he joins us live now from Washington. Thank you for being with us on the program. Now, as our correspondent there said, Israel hasn't claimed responsibility for this attack. But one thing that this attack has done is it's made the possibility of this turning into a wider conflict much, much more serious. What are your thoughts on Israel's position? Do they want to see the war on Gaza spill over Palestine's borders? And is that something that Hezbollah would entertain?
Just to start, I think it's quite clear that Israel is absolutely responsible for this assassination, even if they don't openly take credit for it. That's simply just their standard policy to never take credit for anything that they do. But the rhetoric that is coming out of them, the comments that have come from American officials as well, is a very, very clear indication that Israel is absolutely responsible for this assassination. And frankly, I do think that what they're trying to do is widen the scope of this war because they're facing significant pushback right now on their actual plan in Gaza. What they want in Gaza is an effort to push Palestinians outside of Gaza's borders, effectively carrying out ethnic cleansing. And they need the fog of a broader war in order to be able to do that and face less international resistance. Because as we've seen recently, even the Biden administration came out with a very forceful statement opposing the possibility of ethnically cleansing Gaza. And Israel is really playing with fire here. By carrying out this assassination in the southern suburb of Beirut, they are specifically targeted the one area that Hezbollah has repeatedly said was a red line, and that any attack on the southern suburb of Beirut would have to be met with significant retaliation. So it's no accident that Israel is targeting the one area where there is a very, very high possibility for an escalation coming from here. And I think, unfortunately, that seems to be the trajectory for which we are, the direction in which we are going.
I was listening to Dr. Mads Gilbert, and he had said that the humanitarian catastrophe could be reversed within hours in Gaza. And we do see the trucks loaded with aid at the border, the medical teams there, the field hospitals. But it has been made clear from the West that there is no political will to stop Israel's bombing campaign of Gaza. But where is the political will to at least let the aid in?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest scandals that history is not going to judge this moment kindly at all. The fact that you have a country that is weaponizing mass starvation and mass thirst against a population, and the fact that everybody knows the solution is incredibly simple. It is simply allowing that humanitarian aid in, and there is no justification, there's no military justification whatsoever, even for the countries that back Israel's insane war in Gaza. There is no military argument for stopping civilians from being able to get food and water and medicine. So the fact that we're allowing this to continue is an absolute scandal. It's a blight on the world in terms of our moral record, something that absolutely history will not judge kindly at all. And again, it's by design. It lays to bear what Israel is actually doing. This pretense that Israel is waging war against Hamas, in which Palestinian civilians are simply accidental collateral damage, is an absolute lie. Israel's war is on the people of Gaza. The civilian population in Gaza is the intended targets of Israel's onslaught, be it a massive bombing campaign or mass starvation and everything else that they're doing. And it's all clearly geared towards Israel ethnically cleansing Palestinians, and Israeli officials talking openly about wanting to thin out the population in Gaza, about wanting to shrink Gaza's size. This is the rhetoric that is coming out of Israeli officials. And for the rest of the world to pretend that this is not happening, I think is incredibly shameful. And it really does put a lot of pressure on all people of conscience everywhere. And South Africa has to be commended for having to step up and pushing for that the charge of genocide to be pushed on Israel, and for it to actually answer for the horrific crimes that it's committing in Gaza.
Right, and Omar, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There are wars within this war on Gaza towards Palestinians, how they've been dehumanized by the media, how members of the Israeli army operates apart from their carpet bombing campaign. I mean, there are soldiers that are taking selfies in children's beds, others that are filming TikToks while abusing Palestinians that they've taken hostage. The list just goes on. And the most worrying thing about all of this, like you said, is that the world is sitting back and watching.
Yeah, it's a level of depravity that you'd think that we'd reach the point where people would not behave that way, period, or at least would not flaunt that on camera. And I think it speaks to something really significant, which is the fundamental problem with American policy on Israel. has been a policy of placing Israel as a country that is above the law and above rules. And when a country gets used to operating without any accountability whatsoever, because the United States will give them weapons no matter what they do, will step in at the UN to veto resolutions that are critical of Israeli policy, no matter what these policies are, that level of impunity encourages people to behave badly. And we've reached a point right now where Israel feels so emboldened about the fact that it's not going to face negative consequences because the US is always going to step in and protect it, that you're seeing this depravity just unfolding quite in the open on social media, the genocidal rhetoric, the horrific actions, the taunting, and also reports of sadistic executions that have taken place in Gaza on the ground of people being killed in front of their families. This is honestly, it's difficult to find the words
Hmm.
to describe how upsetting all of this is. And this is not going to bring security to Israel in the long term. All Israel is doing is stoking the fires of despair and hatred and resentment that are going to renew the possibility of growing violence in the future more and more. So this absolutely brings no security to anyone. And it's
Right.
incredibly misguided strategically, in addition to morally, to continue behaving in the fashion that we're currently seeing.
Right, Omar, I want to lastly get your thoughts on the rise of Islamophobia since October 7 in the light of the killing of an imam today named Hassan Sharif in New Jersey. He was shot multiple times, and we do know that an investigation is currently underway by the police. Unfortunately, this isn't the first victim, and it won't be the last.
We have a climate here in the United States that I think, frankly, having lived through the post 9/11 moment, this does feel worse, surprisingly, in a way, given the fact that there was no attack on the United States. And yet, the political climate here in the United States, the rhetoric coming out of American politicians using genocidal anti Palestinian rhetoric, talking about flattening Gaza, talking about there not being innocent people in Gaza. You have one elected official in Florida who said that every last Palestinian in Gaza ought to be killed. When you have that kind of dehumanizing rhetoric, it creates an atmosphere in which becomes more and more permissive to engage in violence, not just against Palestinians living in Palestine, but
Mhm.
also against Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims living in the United States. That is effectively the climate that we have created, and it does go all the way to the top. We don't have people who are behaving responsibly as at the top of the government in the
Okay.
United States, and it is leading to this incredibly dangerous climate that everybody's witnessing right now.
Indeed, Omar Baddar, thank you so much for being with me here on TRT World and sharing that insight with us. I appreciate it.